Here we go, Jazz here from Jazz Real Estate Group Point Cook. Just a quick one, a sold story about number 15 Elegante Road here in Point Cook. This case study and a soul story has got a lot of lessons to learn. That's why it's important that I would like to share it with yourself. Number one thing, we'll talk about the rotten food and the dead rats smell in the house. Stay tuned because this is absolutely going to amaze you. Property located here in Featherbrook, right? The campaign took a bit longer to sell and longer than what it normally takes for a property to sell. Number one thing I'd say is this property had tenants or renters, what we call them now, in the property, and that made the process a little bit more harder and a bit more longer. The landlords or the rental providers who were our vendors, they were managing the rental property through another agency. So we had limited access to the renters as well. Now, there was a long story of tenants' behavior with regards to rent payments were not being made, the property was not kept well. So the owners were obviously in a situation where it was a gridlock, they had to sell the property. So because the tenants were obviously not paying, it was going through VCAT and all those bits and pieces. So long story short, there was a lot of hassles that the owners had to go through, and then obviously we had to face the same as well. When we were selling this property, the property was not presented well. At the same time, the renters did a run-up. They ran away from the property and they abandoned the property. However, what they did right at the end, they turned off the fridge. They turned off the fridge with the food inside and it was all rotten. One day we rocked up at the home with the open for inspection. It was smelling like a dead rat. Yuck. So this is not the end. Thereafter, the matter went to VCAT, the renter never turned up, and then obviously they got the possession. You have to wait for certain days before you can remove the stuff. The owners had to go in with the cleaners and got the house cleaned. Again, long story short, this all took about a month or over a month because obviously with the presentation like that, no one was willing to buy the home. And thereafter, when the property was vacated, it was all cleaned up. The property went to an auction campaign, which took another 4 weeks of an auction campaign, nearly 2 months. And at auction, the results were good enough, but again, they were not at a level that we were also satisfied either. We passed the property and decided to negotiate thereafter. I'll give you a quick tour as well to the property. That's a property there. Thereafter, we decided to price the property higher. We increased the price of the property, and thereafter, we negotiated one-on-one with the interested parties. The interest level increased thereafter. It took a bit of a time. When we came back from the holidays, the property was then pretty much back to private sale. It was put on hold, and it went on the market again. Now, the property went about roughly 30 to 40 grand above what it got passed in at the auction. It's a satisfactory result, which is again really good. It's currently rented as well. So the property was leased after the auction. We did lease the property out again, so the owners are not having those difficulties because in a situation like this, we would prefer, but the timing was such, we would prefer to have the property staged and presented well. In this situation, because a lot of time was also lost because of the previous tenant, then there was the New Year's and December holidays. The property was required to be leased out again so that we can have some rental income coming. So the owners are having that cushion as well from finances side of it. So thereafter, the property was put back on the market again for sale. The moment it was back on the market, after the tenants moved in, we let them settle for a month or so, had a discussion with the renters, mutually agreed upon doing the inspections. Thereafter, the property got sold within weeks. So the presentation with this tenant was quite good. So goes to show the presentation and pre-planning is very critical. If you are looking for buying a property or selling a property, preparation and planning beforehand is critical. Now, with this property itself, it's a case study, a classic case study that it not just talk about the renters and perhaps selling, it's also about the rentals. If you are a rental provider, choose an agent who would actually do your due diligence correctly. Having the right tenants at the start of the lease is as important as having the renters throughout the journey as well, because most of your problems can actually be eliminated if you do your due diligence correctly in choosing an agent, and the right agent will do the due diligence in choosing the right renters.
That's the most important key element. The takeaway is right renters, pre-planning, presentation, and certainly adding some love to the property, ongoing maintenance to the property, and making sure your property presents well at the sale. Very critical. Your asset is your money-making machine. Treat it like one. Take care.